Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Stotra Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Stotra Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Nityananda. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. So today, on the Saptami Tithi of the Krishna Paksha of the month of Chaitra, right? Are we in the next month? Vaishaka, Madhusudana. We're in a new month now. So on this day, it marks the disappearance of Sri Abhiram Thakur, who is also known as Ram Das Abhiram Das. So this personality has a special place in our temple because of our dear Ram Das Abhiram Das Prabhu, who exhibits the ecstatic mood of Sri Abhiram Thakur. And so I'm going to do a little bit of reading, so try to focus. I know it's hard to focus whenever I'm just reading, but this is like pretty interesting, and this is like a really far out personality. So Sri Abhiram Thakur was known as Abhiram Gopala and also as Ramdas Abhiram Das. And I'm going to be reading from a few different things, so I don't know if I can I don't think I can put my phone on there. Anyways, just try to like focus. Okay, so previously he was known as Sri Dama, which is a Gopa during Krishna Lila in Vrindavan, and now he is renowned as Abhiram or Ramdas, and he was one of the favorites of Nityananda Prabhu. There's a story, I'm not sure exactly where this is from, but this is related by one devotee in a book called Abhiram Lilamrita, where this is like a local, like kind of like story that people will tell, that devotees will tell there. And it goes like this. So one day, Krishna and Balaram and the other cowherd friends were playing a game of hide and seek. In the middle of the game, Krishna decided to go to Nadia to enjoy his pastimes there. So he took with him Balaram and all of their friends, and he advented himself in Navadvip. Somehow or other, he forgot Sri Dama, who remained hiding in his place in a cave. So whenever Krishna noticed that Sri Dama had been left behind, he sent Balaram as Nityananda to go and find Sri Dama. And then Balaram went and find him, and Sri Dama didn't recognize him, but he recognized the blue cloth and everything like that. And so he's asking, "Who are you?" I was like, I'm your Lord Balaram. Can't you recognize me? You can't be my Lord Balaram. You're too small. And it's explained that in Kali Yuga, the measurement of like the human body is like much smaller than in Dwapara Yuga. And then the story goes like this. If you don't believe me, then take off running, and if I can't catch you within 10 paces, then you'll know that I'm not Balaram. He said, okay, all right, catch me if you can. And then they ran, and then Nityananda Prabhu caught him. And then Sri Dama realized that this is in fact Balaram, but he was still a little like upset that all of his friends left him there. So he said, no, anyways, I don't want to go to Nadia or you know, whatever you guys are doing. And Nityananda Prabhu was very adamant that he come, so finally he manifested himself as Ramadas, who agreed to go to Nadia. And this is the story of why Sri Abhiram Thakur advented in Nadia. And he was a very far-out personality. He was an intimate associate of Nityananda Prabhu, and one of the things that he was known for is that anything or anybody that he offered his obeisances to, other than a Shaligram Shila, would completely like crumble. It would like break and crumble. And so like one thing that he would do is that Nityananda Prabhu was having children. Whenever he had his firstborn child, Abhiram Thakur came there to offer him obeisances, and the child died on the spot. And this happened like 7 times. Every time Nityananda Prabhu would have a child, Abhiram Thakur would come to like the celebration ceremony and come and offer his obeisances, and the child would die. So they got a little fried out about this, and because they really wanted a son, I guess. And then whenever Virachandra Prabhu, also known as Virabhadra, the son of Nityananda Prabhu, whenever he was born, they didn't invite Abhiram Thakur to the celebration ceremony because they didn't want him to kill their son after so many attempts of like having a son and everything. So they didn't invite him, but nonetheless, Abhiram Thakur like managed to get there. Basically, Abhiram Thakur lived across the Ganga from Nadia, wherever Nityananda Prabhu was living, and basically Nityananda Prabhu told all of the boat ferries not to pick up this Abhiram Thakur. And then whenever Abhiram Thakur like came there to cross the river, because he heard about the ceremony, and like he wasn't gonna go because he wasn't invited, but then I forget who, somebody convinced him that he should go. And then, so he went there, and then none of the boat ferrymen would take him across. So he took off his cloth and he put it on the water, and it floated like a boat, and he sat on it and like went to the other side. And everybody was very astonished. And then he came there, and then actually, before he got there, Nityananda Prabhu heard that he was coming. So he didn't want to like make it seem like they didn't want him to come. So he decided to get everybody together and start doing like a kirtan, as in like a welcoming like for him, as if they were very happy that he was coming. So they went and met him by the banks of the Ganga, doing kirtan and everything. And then, they kind of pleaded to him like, okay, listen, like, please don't offer your obeisances to this kid. Like everything that, every time you do this, the person dies. So, but Abhiram Thakur was saying that basically, like, if your son is truly worth like having, then he'll survive my obeisances. Because like they were wanting to have a son who would be a representative for Lord Chaitanya after Lord Chaitanya left this world. So they wanted someone who was non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be born as their son. And so Abhiram Thakur's whole philosophy was that, if he's actually worthy of representing Lord Chaitanya, then he'll survive my obeisances. So then they're like, okay, fine. And then he goes there and then offers his obeisances, and it didn't kill the kid. It didn't kill this Vira Chandra. And he did it multiple times just to make sure, and the kid survived. And later on, this Vira Chandra, Virabhadra, he was in fact an incarnation of, I forget exactly who. It's like Anantasesha or something. Hold on, I can pull it up. Yeah, so this Virabhadra is an expansion of Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. So he is Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, an expansion of Lord Sankarsana. And he advented as Virachandra Prabhu. And this Virachandra Prabhu, he was non-different from Lord Chaitanya himself. And he advented to continue the teachings of Krishna consciousness after Lord Chaitanya left this world. So there's a few other like little pastimes that are very interesting about Abhiram Thakur. One thing that he's very famous for is having a whip called Jayamangal, which is like a transcendental whip, and whoever he whips, it gives them ecstatic love of God. So he was always going around and like whipping people, and like they would like start rolling around in ecstasy. And he did this with Srinivas Acharya, I believe, or maybe Srivas Pandit, I forget. But yeah, he had some very uncommon qualities, very amazing powers and things like this that he would exhibit sometimes. And yeah, he's just a very far out personality. So we can appreciate this. We can, one thing that's very unique about the pastimes of the cowherd boys in their advent in Gora Leela is that they really, really love to joke around and have a good time. So this is like kind of exhibited by Sri Abhiram Thakur, who was, a very staunch devotee, a very strict devotee, and was teaching philosophy exactly as it is with no exceptions. But at the same time, he exhibits kind of like the ecstasy that you can like, the very happy life of Krishna consciousness in a very joking mood. And Prabhupada writes about him a few times in his books, specifically in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Adi Leela, I believe chapter 11, Expansions of Lord Nityananda. I'm not sure exactly the verse number. Oh, text number 13. It is said, Sri Ramdas Ar Garadhar Das, Chaitanya Gosai Bhakta Rahe Tanra Pash. Two devotees of Lord Chaitanya, named Sri Ramdas and Garadhara Das, always lived with Sri Virabhadra Gosai. The purport goes as follows. The Sri Ramdas, later known as Abhiram Thakur, was one of the 12 Gopalas, cowherd boyfriends of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. The Gora Ganodesh Deepika, verse 126, states that Sri Ramdas was formerly Sri Dama. In Bhakti Ratnakara, there is a description of Srila Abhiram Thakur. By the order of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, Abhiram Thakur became a great acharya and preacher of the Chaitanya cult of devotional service. He was a very influential personality, and non-devotees were very afraid of him. Empowered by Sri Nityananda Prabhu, he was always in ecstasy and was extremely kind to all fallen souls. It is said that if he offered obeisances to any stone other than Shaligram Shila, it would immediately fracture. 10 miles southwest of Chanpadanga railway station, a narrow gauge railway from the line of Howrah in Calcutta to Amta, a village in the Hooghly district, a small town named Kanakula Krishnanagar, where the temple of Abhiram Thakur is situated. Anyways, a lot of details. Basically, Sri Abhiram Thakur had a deity of Gopal, which is still being worshipped today in that place. And then Prabhupada goes on to talk about his whip called Jayamangal. And Srinivasa Acharya was one of his disciples, and he was also one of those recipients of the mercy of Jayamangal. And then another instance in the Chaitanya Charitamrita we have in the Adi Lila chapter 10, text 116. Ramadasa Abhiram Sakhya Premarashi Shola Shangir Kashta Tuli Jay Korilag Bangshi. Ramdas Abhiram was fully absorbed in the mellow of friendship. He made a flute of bamboo stick with 16 knots. And and then in the Gaur Ganodesh Deepika, we have Pura Shri Dama Namasid Abhiramo Dhuna Mahan Dvatrim Shatajanereva Vahyam Kashtam Muvahasaha. He who was previously known as Sri Dama is today Abhiram Thakur. He picked up a piece of wood that took 32 men to lift. And this whole story about this is that, being a cowherd boy, not just Krishna plays with the flute, all the different cowherd boys play with flutes as well. And he had the desire one day to play with a flute, and he saw like a big stump in the ground that, 32 men could not lift? It would have taken 32 men to lift, but Abhiram Thakur was somehow able to lift it up, and then he fashioned a flute out of it. So this is Sri Ramdas Abhiram Thakur. Today is his disappearance day, so in honor of him we can try to remember some of his pastimes. Continuing to Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we're reading from the second canto, chapter 4, text number 25, which concludes the fourth chapter and concludes the prayers of Shukadeva Goswami before before going on in Srimad Bhagavatam, before actually getting into speaking the Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. So, yeah, that's it. Word for word. Etad evatma bhu rajan naradaya viprichate veda garbho vyadhat sakshad yad aha harir atmanah. Etad evatma bhurajan. Etad evatma bhurajan. Naradaya viprichate. Naradaya viprichate. Veda garbho vyadhat sakshad. Veda garbho vyadhat sakshad. Yadaha hariratmanaha. Yadaha hariratmanaha. Etadevatma bhurajan. Naradaya viprichate. Veda garbho vyadhat sakshad. Veda garbho vyadhat sakshad. Yadaha hariratmanaha. Yadaha hariratmanaha. Etadevatma bhurajan. Naradaya viprichate. Vedagarbho vyadhat sakshad. Yadaha hariratmanaha. Please repeat. Etadevatma bhurajan. Naradaya viprichate. Sakshad. Yadaha hariratmanaha. Etadevatma bhurajan. Naradaya viprichate. Garbo yatha sakshad. Yadaha hariratmanaha. Etadevatma bhurajan. Naradaya viprichate. Vidagarbo vyadha sakshad. Yadatma hariratmanaha. Etadevatma bhurajan. Naradaya viprichate. Vedagarbho vyadhat sakshad. Yadaha hariratmanaha. Any Matajis on the gym? Etadevatma bhurajan. Naradaya viprichate. Vedagarbho vyadhat sakshad. Yadaha hariratmanaha. Etadevatma bhurajan. Naradaya viprichate. Vedagarbho vyadhat sakshad. Yadaha hariratmanaha. Etat, on this matter. Eva, exactly. Atma bhuhu, the firstborn Brahmaji. Rajan, my dear king. Naradaya, unto Narada Muni. Viprichate, having inquired about it from. Vedagarbha, one who is impregnated with Vedic knowledge from birth. Abhyadhat, apprised. Sakshat, directly. Yadaha, what he spoke. Harihi, the Lord. Atmanaha, unto his own Brahma. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. My dear king, Brahma, the firstborn, on being questioned by Narada, exactly apprised him on this subject as it was directly spoken by the Lord to his own son, who was impregnated with Vedic knowledge from his very birth. Purport. As soon as Brahma was born of the abdominal lotus petals of Vishnu, he was impregnated with Vedic knowledge, and therefore he is known as Vedagarbha, or a Vedantist from the embryo. Without Vedic knowledge or perfect infallible knowledge, no one can create anything. All scientific knowledge and perfect knowledge are Vedic. One can get all types of information from the Vedas, and as such, Brahma was impregnated with all perfect knowledge so that it was possible for him to create. Thus, Brahma knew the perfect description of creation, as it was exactly apprised to him by the Supreme Lord Hari. Brahma, on being questioned by Narada, told Narada exactly what he had heard directly from the Lord. Narada again told exactly the same thing to Vyasa, and Vyasa also told Shukadeva exactly what he heard from Narada. And Shukadeva was going to repeat the same statements he had heard as he had heard them from Vyasa. That is the way of Vedic understanding. The language of the Vedas can be revealed only by the above mentioned disciplic succession and not otherwise. There is no use in theories. Knowledge must be factual. There are many things that are complicated, and one cannot understand them unless they are explained by one who knows. The Vedic knowledge is also very difficult to know and must be learned by the above mentioned system. Otherwise, it is not at all understood. Shukadeva Goswami therefore prayed for the mercy of the Lord so that he might be able to repeat the very same message that was spoken directly by the Lord to Brahma, or what was directly spoken by Brahma to Narada. Therefore, the statements of creation explained by Shukadeva Goswami are not at all, as the mundaner suggests, theoretical, but are perfectly correct. One who hears these messages and tries to assimilate them gets perfect information of the material creation. Thus, in the Bhaktivedanta purports of the second canto, 4th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Process of Creation. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamahyam Darati Svaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutah Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna, Karuna, Sindho, Dinabandho, Jagatpate, Gopesha, Gopika, Kanta, Radha, Kanta, Namostute, Tapta Kanchana, Gaurangi, Radhe, Vrindavaneshwari, Vrishabhanu, Sute, Devi, Pranamami, Hari Priye, Vancha, Kalpatrubhyascha, Kripa, Sindhubhya Evacha, Patitanam, Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Etare Vatma Bhura Jan Naradaya Viprichate Vedagarbho Vyadhat Sakshad Yaraha Hare Ratmanaha. My dear King Brahma, the firstborn, on being questioned by Narada, exactly apprised him on this subject, as it was directly spoken by the Lord to his own son, who was impregnated with Vedic knowledge from his very birth. So this concluding statement of Shukadeva Goswami at the end of his prayers kind of summarizes the whole system of Guru Parampara, which is the Vedic system. And whenever we're speaking on Guru Parampara, I'm always reminded of this memory by Suhotra Maharaj, who was on the Radha Damodar party for some time, and then he went over to the BBT library party. And in his travels and going to universities and trying to sell books to like universities and things like this, he was always meeting people who, you have like Indologists and like religious studies professors and things like this who read about the Vedas, but they don't read about the Vedas from Guru Parampara, so they have like some weird ideas. But anyways, there was like a famous book at that time that they were distributing books called Chariot of the Gods, which was talking about Vedic technology. And Suhotra Maharaj had the opportunity to meet with Prabhupada during like this time, and he wanted to ask Prabhupada, because so many professors were asking if these books that we have talk about Vedic technology, and he was he wanted to ask Prabhupada how to respond to something like this. And before he could even really get it out of his mouth, he said oh Prabhupada, the professors at the school, they're very interested in Vedic technology. And before he could hardly even say that, Prabhupada blurted out, Vedic technology means Shri Guru Parampara. And then that was it. That was just a statement he made. And he said that for many, many years he meditated on this and actually trying to understand how Vedic technology is Guru Parampara. And if you really think about it, it's the highest technology. You can understand technology to be the dynamic force which is kind of driving human civilization, and it's something that connects the whole world. It's something that everyone is on the same page about. It's something that most people think is beneficial for the advancement of human civilization. And I haven't even been here for so long, but I remember before I came, and then now, just like last week, one devotee was telling me about all the advancements they've made in artificial intelligence. And from before I joined and everything, it was we didn't have any of that stuff. And now it's I mean, probably like very rudimentary compared to like what we'll have in a few years, but like we're advancing so much in like so many different like facets of like technology and science and everything like this. And we can understand that this is kind of the dynamic force which is like driving our whole civilization. But actually, previously, the dynamic force which was driving the whole Vedic civilization was this principle of Guru Parampara, and like specifically being delivered in the Varnashrama like system. This system of Guru Parampara was something which was unavoidable in the Varnashram system, and it was something that during the time that the Vedic culture was spread all around the world, it was something that united everybody. And so everyone was getting their knowledge from authorized sources, whenever the Vedic civilization was like completely intact. But due to the advancement of like material science and material technology and things like this, people have neglected this real transcendental technology and accepted something which is only accelerating their life of suffering, and there's so many different types of technologies, and a lot of people, they like to come up with ideas that will increase their sense gratification, like how can we like watch movies on our phone, or how can we, like how do we advance our sense gratification? But also there's so many scientists that are very focused on advancing in the realm of like health and medicine and things like this, with the idea of helping people with technology. And but nonetheless, because they're not actually getting their knowledge in the system of Guru Parampara, then the whole system is a big failure. And we see that whenever people come up with some new idea of like how we can cure this disease or that disease, then so many other like side effects happen. There's pollution, there's like they start testing all these things on like animals, like lab rats and stuff like that, and so many people are suffering just for like a small chunk of the population who has some kind of very obscure disease, just so that they can have some kind of vaccine or something like that. Whereas previously, everything was there in the system of Guru Parampara. There's Ayurveda, there's Dhanurveda, there's even this like Niti Shastra, just like common sense, and like instructions for politicians, instructions for merchants, instructions for workers, and things like this. So in the system of Guru Parampara, it is a holistic science where the whole civilization is ultimately benefited, because it's meant to direct everyone's attention towards Krishna. It's meant to actually awaken an understanding of Brahman, and it's actually meant to elevate everyone to the platform of being a Brahmana. And Prabhupada explains that naturally in the Vedic system of Varnashram Dharma, because of this Guru Parampara, even a Shudra can begin to understand what is Brahman, which qualifies him to be a Brahmana. And in this way, the Vedic knowledge is passed down unscathed for many generations. And this is how it was previously going, but now in Kali Yuga, of course, everything is messed up. And here Prabhupada is describing our own disciplic succession, which is stemming from Krishna, of course, and then going directly to Lord Brahma, who is called here as Veda Garbha, which means that from his very birth he was impregnated with the Vedic knowledge. Now in the Bhagavatam we get like a slightly different like story actually. In the third canto we'll read later on how Lord Brahma, he sprouted out of this lotus flower coming from Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and then it was all dark everywhere, and he didn't know what to do. He didn't know what was going on. He was very much an illusion. And then after some tapasya or some austerity, and after a very intense endeavor to actually find what is the truth, then only it was revealed to him. So there, in that description, and specifically, Lord Brahma says that it was after a long time of doing this tapasya that actually he was able to have darshan of the Supreme Absolute Truth. But nonetheless, this is we can understand this to be kind of like the pastimes of a pure devotee. Of course, in this universe, our Lord Brahma is a pure devotee. We understand this as him being the acharya, which is the head of our very sampradaya. So we can understand that his being an illusion is actually, we can learn from this pastime, so that we understand that we are also born in an illusion, and we need to make an endeavor to find the truth. We always chant this prayer, Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. that we were born in the darkness of ignorance, and that the spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. So this should be the mood of an aspiring spiritualist, that they recognize that they are born in the darkness of ignorance, and they are completely disconnected from any type of enlightenment. And we can understand this in the birth of Brahmaji, where he is born into a universe which is empty. It's the only thing which is there is the Paramatma, which is all pervading in this like almost void, in this dark void. But it is said that Brahma actually found illumination from the stem which was actually connecting him to Vishnu. So this is how the Guru Parampara starts. This illumination, there's this verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I always forget it, it's like Surya, anyways, it's comparing Krishna to be the sun and Maya to be darkness. And wherever there is Krishna, there cannot be, or wherever there is the sun, there cannot be darkness. So wherever there is Krishna, there cannot be Maya. So the whole understanding is that Lord Brahma was born in Maya. He was born in darkness, literally and figuratively. And then by his connection with Krishna, you can see how the whole universe became manifested. And also I don't remember where it is. Maybe it's in that same discourse where Lord Brahma is describing how he created the universe, but he says that actually all things which are lighting up this universe, just how the sun is actually just a small fragment of Krishna's Jyoti, his like effulgence, just how the sun is just a small fraction of that. Also, I am just like a small fraction of like Krishna's creative potency. So like in this way, the whole cosmic manifestation is being created by Krishna through different agencies. Just how like the sun is just a fragment of the Jyoti. What is the full word for that? Jyoti? Is it Brahma Jyoti? Yeah, Brahma Jyoti, the spiritual effulgence. Just how the sun is just a small fragment of that. And then from the sun, all other light happens. So like fire, the light that's coming from fire is actually a manifestation of the light that's coming from the sun. So like, you can understand that the tree, it only grows because of the sun, and then that energy from the sun goes into the wood, and then there's the potential for light because it's getting that from the sun. So like just like this, all light that is in the material universe is coming from the sun, and the sun is coming from the Brahma Jyoti. So we can also understand that all of Lord Brahma's creations is actually coming from the inspiration given to him by Lord Sri Krishna through the system of Guru Parampara. And Krishna, of course, is the supreme spiritual master. And all of these conditioned souls being born, being forcibly put into wombs in this material world, born in the darkness of ignorance, because of Krishna's mercy upon them, we are somehow or other able to come across the association of devotees. We're somehow able to connect in this like system of Guru Parampara. And this is actually what inspires us in our spiritual life. On the other hand, people are also very, very inspired to advance in material life as well. And actually, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in his commentary on the Brahma Samhita, there's many different, anyways, I'll pull it up. There's a more detailed description of the creation of the material world in the Brahma Samhita, specifically with Lord Brahma. And so I'll just read a few of the verses. The divine lotus, which springs from the navel pit of Vishnu, is in every way related by the spiritual tie with all souls and is the origin of four-faced Brahma versed in the four Vedas. On coming out of the lotus, Brahma, being guided by the divine potency, tuned his mind to the act of creation under the impulse of previous impressions, but he could see nothing but darkness in every direction. So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada, the spiritual master, explains that Lord Brahma, he, because of his previous impressions in previous lives and things like this, from the very beginning of his life, he had the urge to create. He had the passionate urge to create, which means that his devotional service was actually mixed. And this is said by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, that actually Lord Brahma's devotional service to Sri Krishna was actually mixed. And of course, in many universes, the Brahma there is not a pure devotee. But even it's difficult to understand the position of our Lord Brahma, who is considered to be a pure devotee, because after meditating upon Krishna, who is the supreme absolute truth, and everything like this, he realizes that he is an eternal servant of Krishna. He realizes that he is meant to eternally reside in the spiritual world and eternally associate with devotees and serve Krishna and things like this. Yet he still feels very inspired to advance the material manifestation, the material cosmic manifestation. And so this is explained a little bit by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, that actually all inspiration is coming from Lord Sri Krishna. And of course, there's different representatives that Krishna has. Of course, you have like Durga Devi, who is the superintendent over all material energy, and by meditating upon Durga Devi, one becomes very materially attached. And similarly, if you meditate upon Krishna, then all other desires are accomplished. So we have this verse that we just recently went through, this akama sarva kamo va moksha karma uddaradhi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Is that it? Anyways, the two first lines are most important, that if one has no desires, or if one is completely full of desires, or if one just desires to have moksha, they should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So even if, to become a Brahma, have the position of Brahman in the material universe, it means that you've had to undergo so many fruitive activities, and you have to go through so many pious things, and you've had to really cultivate this desire to be like the head honcho of the entire universe. So it's no joke. And you can understand that this would be a very, very materialistic person in any ordinary circumstance. But upon meditating on the desire of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, Lord Brahma, he felt inspired to create the cosmic manifestation, not out of a lusty desire to enjoy the material world, but actually by seeing that it was Krishna's desire for a material world to be manifest, so that conditioned souls would have the opportunity to come back to Godhead through the agency of the Guru Parampara. So this is the connection between this verse and actually the whole pastime of Lord Brahma creating this material universe, that actually the whole point of this material universe is to disseminate the Vedic wisdom. And Lord Brahma has the special position as being that person which all of this knowledge is ultimately coming from. He received it from Lord Krishna, and then he naturally distributes it to all of his disciples, and then to their disciples, and like this. So then the goddess Saraswati appeared to Lord Brahma and gave him a mantra to meditate upon. She said, "O Brahma, do thou practice spiritual association by means of this mantra, then all of your desires will be fulfilled." The verse is tapas tvam tapa etena tava siddhir bhavishyati. So tapas, spiritual austerity, tapa, practice. So by practicing this mantra, which was given to him by Saraswati, which is a Krishna mantra, it is a. Anyways, it's said right here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the Brahma Samhita. The mantra goes as follows: Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopi Jana Vallabhaya Swaha. So by meditating upon this pastime, and actually this is explained by Gokul Chandra Prabhu in this whole what's it called? No, not Golokachar. Brahma Samhita is a seminar, and he explains that actually this is actually what we do as well. This meditation upon a mantra, and this specific mantra is talking about how Krishna is situated in the middle of the spiritual world in Goloka, and so by meditating upon this mantra, Lord Brahma completely entered into that realm, that spiritual realm, and. So, Lord Brahma, being desirous of satisfying Govinda, practiced the cultural acts for Krishna in Goloka, Lord of Shweta Dvipa, for a long time. His meditation ran thus: There exists a divine lotus of 1,000 petals, augmented by millions of filaments, in the transcendental land of Goloka. On its world there exists a great divine throne, on which is seated Sri Krishna, the form of eternal effulgence of transcendental bliss, playing on his divine flute, resonant with the divine sound with his lotus mouth. He is worshipped by his amorous milkmaids with their with their respective subjective portions and extensions, and also by his external energy who stays outside, embodying all mundane qualities. So Lord Brahma, this is where Lord Brahma actually has full darshan of the spiritual world. And in this way, he is inspired to please Lord Govinda by serving him in bhakti yoga. Then Gayatri, mother of the Vedas, being made manifest, imparted by the divine sound of the flute of Sri Krishna, entered into the lotus mount of Brahma, born from himself through his 8 ear holes. The lotus-born Brahma, having received the Gayatri sprung from the flute song of Sri Krishna, attained the status of the twice-born, having been initiated by the supreme primal preceptor, Godhead himself. So Lord Brahma, upon meditating upon Lord Krishna being situated in Goloka, he was given the opportunity to hear the song which Krishna was playing on his flute, which manifested itself as the Gayatri mantra. And in this way, Lord Brahma attained the status of being a twice-born Brahmana, and in this way he became the guru of the entire universe, which going through the authorized system of Guru Parampara. So this is how Lord Brahma was initiated into the Sampradaya, which was started by Sri Krishna. And then here we are, like millions of trillions of years later, or whatever. I don't even know how old this universe is, but you can understand that after so long, we still have the same exact message which was given to Brahma at the beginning of the universe. So how is this possible? Only by the very advanced technology of the Sri Guru Parampara. And this is explained in the Vedas many, many times. You know, the importance of accepting a guru. We have Tad Vijnanartam Sagrum Eva Bhigachet. What's the other line for that? Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam, yeah. So if one wants to understand transcendental knowledge, one must approach a bona fide spiritual master. And what is that spiritual master? One who has heard, Shrotriyam, and one who is fixed in Brahma, Brahmanishtam. And what does that mean? One who is fixed in devotional service, one who is completely spiritual by his association with the spiritual energy. So this is said many, many times throughout the Vedic knowledge, and specifically in the Bhagavad Gita, we have the Evang Parampara Praptam Imang Rajarshayo Viduhu Sakalaneha Mahata Yogo Nashta Parantapa. That this system of Guru Parampara is how this knowledge is being passed down, and it goes to these saintly kings, these Raja Rishis, and in due course of time, sometimes it gets lost. You have this Sakalaneha Mahata. So this kala, and then everyone knows this word maha. So this can either mean like a very long period of time, or it can mean by the very great influence of time itself. And so in this way, the science of Krishna consciousness is established by Krishna, and then due to the influence of Maya, and due to the influence of eternal time, sometimes this knowledge is manifest, and sometimes this knowledge is unmanifest in this material world. And this is what separates the technology of Guru Parampara from the technology of like modern man. That the technology of modern man, it always has different faults. And it might appear that the technology of Guru Parampara also has its faults, because sometimes it's forgotten and sometimes it's lost and things like this. But actually, this is a quality of all knowledge in the material world. Even with the divine knowledge which is being imparted through Guru Parampara, it's not that the system is imperfect, it's that those who are using this system, they are imperfect, and they are influenced by the modes of material nature, and it's the very nature of Maya to make you forget about Krishna. So naturally, whenever there's an increase in the influence of Maya in this material world, the system of Guru Parampara is apparently lost. But actually, this is an eternal science. This is eternal knowledge, because we're talking about the absolute truth, which is not changing. This is we can understand that it's manifest sometimes and it's unmanifest sometimes. Whereas mundane, materialistic science and technology and things like this, it's practically not even existing in the first place, because we're talking about things which are temporary, and in our lives, it might seem very, very important, like just for Kepler to discover this cell or whatever he did. telescope or something, I guess. He spent his entire life developing a telescope. And then like now, if we see like a telescope that was invented by Kepler or whoever, Newton, we would think it's like very like, oh, okay, this is like a waste of time. Now we got some like real serious stuff going on. And like this, the advancement of material technology, you take knowledge from your preceptors, and then you abandon whatever doesn't really work, and you try to add on your own things. And this is in this way the real essence of knowledge is completely lost. The real essence of true factual truth, which is Vedic knowledge, and Prabhupada is explaining that that all knowledge which is true and scientific, it must be Vedic. This knowledge is lost in the system of mundane parampara. You can't even call it parampara. Mundane transfer of knowledge. And actually, even for mundane topics, this is something which is essential. But because this system is being maintained by a bunch of envious upstarts, this system ultimately leads to degradation. It ultimately leads to the whole idea is that you'll advance and you'll be happy and you'll become knowledgeable and things like this. But actually, the exact opposite is what actually happens. And we see this with all advancements in technology and science and things like this. It might seem very good in the beginning, but in due course of time, it ends up being the very cause of your own destruction. And this is kind of played with different philosophers and writers and things in the past, where like they create something very extraordinary, and then that very thing ends up killing them. And this is kind of understood. Nonetheless, because we're always forgetting the nature of the absolute truth, because we're always forgetting that this material world is something which is temporary and full of suffering, we are always inclined to increase our pool of material sense gratification. So in this way, the mundane science is going on, and this is actually inspired by Krishna. They don't understand where this knowledge is coming from. Of course, you can see where knowledge is coming from to some extent, but a lot of times people just come up with some like brand new idea. They completely speculate about something, they come up with something completely new, and then they give it a shot, and it might work for some time. It might seem to accomplish the task that they wanted to accomplish. And actually, all of this is actually coming from Krishna. Krishna is even inspiring the demons to come up with all these demoniac forms of technology. All different forms of knowledge and inspiration are ultimately coming from Krishna, because this system of Guru Parampara is something which is eternal and cannot be broken. This system is the only means by which there is anything happening in the material universe at all, both mundane and spiritual. It's all coming from Krishna. Nonetheless, we should accept that process which gives us liberation from this material world, instead of accepting that process which binds us further. Krishna gives us both of these options, and he leaves it up to us whether or not we want, whichever one we want to choose. Luckily, in our universe, our Brahma chose to be a servant of Krishna upon hearing the Vedic knowledge. But in many cases, when one hears the Vedic knowledge, they extract so many mentally concocted ideas from it, and they disseminate the knowledge which is ultimately meant to destroy the entire world. And whenever Mayavadis and gross materialists and things like this, and of course mental speculators and scholars, whenever they get their hands on the Vedic knowledge, they, like Prabhupada is saying here, where is it? Anyways, the mundane materialists and things like this, they think that the descriptions of the manifestation of the cosmic universe and other facets of Vedic knowledge, they think that this is also just like something which is mundane, and they think that this is also something which is concocted. So whenever mundane people get their hands on spiritual knowledge, they ultimately drag it down to the pool of mundane knowledge. And whenever they disseminate this knowledge, it ultimately has no benefit for anyone. And not only does it not benefit anyone, it's actually the cause for the great violence upon the conditioned soul. This principle of ahimsa is something which is very popular nowadays with like the vegans and stuff like that. And their whole philosophy of non-violence is surrounding the idea that we are the body, and that violence performed on the body is something which affects the person and things like this. When in actuality, real ahimsa it means teaching Krishna consciousness, and real himsa, real violence, means teaching something which is not Krishna consciousness, because this actually it actually disconnects the conditioned soul from the real authorized guru parampara, which only increases their this cycle of birth and death, for who knows how long. So so this is our Guru Parampara. Just the other day we sang this song written by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, the Guru Parampara, Krishna Hoite Chaturmukha, which describes from Lord Brahma all the way down to our present Acharya Srila Prabhupada. And we can understand it in this way, and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta really emphasized that we should understand this system, because this system is actually it's like I was saying, it's that dynamic force which is driving our spiritual life. And if we don't recognize where our knowledge is coming from, and especially if we don't give the proper appreciation for it and the proper respect to our predecessors, then ultimately one will fall down. And this is seen time and time again. Whenever one commits offenses to the guru, it's something which is almost like they can't recover from it. So we can understand our parampara from the parampara itself. Just like one who creates like some kind of machine, some very complicated machine, if someone wants to understand the machine, they have to consult with the person who created that machine. It's not that you can, it's not that if your cell phone breaks, it's not that you can go and ask, some kind of, any kind of electrician if they can come and fix your cell phone. You have to actually consult with somebody who's professional in fixing cell phones. And those professionals, they're getting their knowledge of how to fix cell phones from the manufacturer itself. They get the blueprints, they get all the, that knowledge is coming from the creator of it, of the cell phone itself. So similarly, in spiritual knowledge, we can't just approach anyone and everyone and expect to get something which we will really benefit from. Everyone wants to feel spiritual ecstasy. Everyone wants to become liberated from materialistic suffering and things like this. But if we're going and getting it from the wrong source, then we're not actually going to accomplish anything. So many people think that a spiritual life is something which is very cheap. And it doesn't happen so much like nowadays, like how it was happening during Prabhupada's time. But back then there were so many gurus who were like kind of going to the West for the first time, and they were like advertising, I have this mantra, or I have this type of meditation, or this or that, and they were trying to like sell their spirituality. And people who took spirituality very cheaply, they took this very quickly. They one bogus guy was saying that if you just chant this mantra for like a month or so, then you'll become God, and then you got to pay like $60 to get the mantra. And it's like these people who take something like that, they think that it only costs $60 to become God. So these are the types of people who because of their own insincerity, they're completely ignoring the authorized process of spiritual life, which is something which is not cheap at all. And Prabhupada, one time he was asked, like, how many students do you have? How many members of this Krishna Consciousness Society do you have? And Prabhupada, before even answering the question, he said, because we're presenting a life of austerity, we don't have so many people. You won't see that there's so many followers of our culture, our religion, or whatever like that. So Prabhupada recognized, but he said that that it will increase gradually. That because of the power of the Hare Krishna mantra, because of the power of the purity of the devotees and things like this, the movement will increase gradually. And so Prabhupada was obviously not a passionate personality who was, all about getting as many disciples as possible and opening as many temples as possible. But you can see that due to his sincerity, the movement spread very quickly while he was here. But he acknowledged the fact that because we're presenting a lifestyle which is full of austerities, especially for like Western people who are completely accustomed to living a very sinful life, he recognized that this it wouldn't spread so quickly, especially after he left. And we've seen this very practically, that there's so many problems after he's left, because this system of Guru Parampara was broken. Nonetheless, because of Krishna's mercy, the Guru Parampara is something which is more or less always available for the conditioned souls in the material world, whether it's through himself being incarnated, in different avatars, or through a representative, a spiritual master, or even from within the heart of the living entities. Krishna is always giving them spiritual inspiration. So this is, we can understand that it is because of Krishna's mercy upon us that we have become fortunate enough to have a bona fide spiritual master. This Brahmiti, how does it start? Bhagavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Late. Brahmanda Brahmite Kon, Bhagavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. So this Bhagavan means one who is very fortunate. And so one who is very fortunate, after many, many lifetimes, they finally come across a bona fide spiritual master. So we can consider ourselves to be very, very fortunate to come across a bona fide spiritual master, which is coming in this line of disciplic succession, which is going from Lord Krishna himself to Lord Brahma to all of these very illustrious personalities. In the Bhagavatam, Yamaraj himself, he lists these Dvadasha Mahajanas. The Guru Maharaj was just talking about this in the Bhishma lecture. There are these 12 great personalities that we specifically give much importance to as Vaishnavas, which are authorities in the science of devotional service. But we can understand that there are so many Mahajanas. There are so many members. Prabhupada says that there's hundreds of thousands of acharyas that have come and gone. But what stays the same is the message of Krishna consciousness. Whenever that message is coming from a bona fide line, then that message remains intact. And this comes about by this Mahajano Yena Gatasa Panta, by following the path of the great Mahajanas. And, so this is the system of Guru Parampara. And if we neglect this system, thinking that, we know better, or I'd like to, find something which resonates with me, or I'd like to come up with my own thing, or something like this, then we develop an offensive attitude towards Krishna himself, actually, because this is the knowledge that Krishna has given. This is the prescription that Krishna has given for the conditioned souls. It's not that you go to the doctor and then he prescribes you something and you say, actually, I don't like how that medicine tastes, or I don't like how that makes me feel. I'd rather take this one. You can't do that. Anybody with any common sense knows that you should accept the authority, but nonetheless, because we're so incredibly puffed up and so incredibly envious of Krishna, we come up with so many different ideas of how we're going to be happy in this material world. But for one who is not envious of Krishna, he becomes qualified to receive the mercy of Krishna in the form of transcendental knowledge. And this is practically exemplified by Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, what is this? Idam tute guhyatamang pravakshyam yanasuyave. Because he is anasuyave, because he is non-envious, now I will impart to you this most confidential knowledge. And if we develop this lack of enviousness towards Krishna, then we will become qualified to actually advance in spiritual life. And, for many of us, we're directly in contact with a bona fide spiritual master. And for some people who are insincere, they might think that finally I'm in contact with the spiritual master, I've reached the finish line. But actually, this is the start line. That your spiritual life only starts at this very moment. It's not that you've made it and now everything is fine. Especially after getting initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, it's not that you just become complacent and you just live your life very casually and comfortably and things like this. You actually have to, if you really want to benefit from that relationship with the spiritual master, you have to develop a mood of servitude. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya sagunan samat upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshanaha. So by this principle of pariprashnena, this submissive attitude, and sevaya, by service, offering service. This is the principle which makes this Guru Parampara actually work. This is something, it's like a two-way street. It's, of course, the knowledge is flowing down from Krishna, and there's nothing which is stopping that flow, except if we get out of that flow, then we don't benefit from it. So you have to actually connect yourself. There's like this Krishna consciousness is like Prabhupada said, it's like a pushing movement. We're pushing people to go closer to Krishna and things like this. But also we have to understand that the spiritual master is pulling you towards Krishna as well. Krishna's here, spiritual master's here, and here's you. He's pulling you, So he can grab onto you as hard as he possibly can, but if you're if you're squirming and not willing to be grabbed onto, then nothing, it won't work. You have to hold on as well. It's a two-way street. And, naturally the spiritual master is very compassionate upon conditioned souls. So he endeavors very hard to get people to take this knowledge and things like this. But if we are simply not, if we're too puffed up to accept it, then we won't benefit from this very rare opportunity that we have as human beings, born in this time and in this place. In these bodies that we have, it's something which is very, very rare. And if we waste our life without getting connected with this line of knowledge, then we're just living like animals. The animal civilizations, they're doing the same exact thing. The sense gratification is available in all the different species of life. They're coming up with so many different ways of how they can enjoy more. You see the creativity of even like some of the most abominable creatures. Like there's spiders that can weave the most intricate webs. Where it's a very amazing example of like their own creative potency. What to speak of like the human beings, we're making huge skyscrapers and all this very amazing technology and things like this. But if we're not doing these things with the idea of serving Krishna, then we're living just like the animals. And whenever you live like an animal, you'll die like an animal, and then you'll continue to live like an animal in your next life. So it's very, very important that we get connected with this parampara right here, right now. It's not that you have to have any kind of material qualification. Probably most of our devotees don't really have so much of like any kind of education qualifications or anything like that. We got like dropouts. We got some people that never even like started, and so many acharyas have appeared which have exemplified that you don't need to have any kind of material qualification. You don't need to be born in a Brahmin family. You don't need to have some kind of advanced level of education. You don't even need to be literate. So many of our acharyas have exemplified this. And nonetheless, still so many times we have like personalities like Srila Bhakti Siddhanta who become very, very advanced in like apparently materialistic education, just so that people will respect him and actually give him that real attention which he deserves. But nonetheless, we don't need to have any material qualification to enter into this Guru Parampara, to get connected and actually benefit from this Krishna consciousness movement. Everyone is ready to receive the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So most important thing is that we always have to maintain this mood of humility by following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas, by reciting the prayers of the previous acharyas, like what we're doing every morning. Then this process of surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this process of surrender to the Guru Parampara, it's something which naturally occurs. And it's a gradual process which is accomplished in slow degrees, but nonetheless, this is the ultimate means by which to attain full happiness in your relationship with Krishna. So I'll finish there. We have a little bit of time if anybody has any questions or comments or corrections. Ranjar Prabhu, do you have any? Yes, Prabhu Chandra.
So I was gonna ask you. You said this one point. I don't know if you meant Brahman or Paramatma, because you said there's like, one goes. I'm not gonna be able to like exactly say this statement, but that there's like a dark hole or this darkness that you were mentioning.
Oh, like in the beginning before Brahma like created everything.
Yeah. There's only Paramatma.
Yeah, so it's described in the third. I was kind of brushing up on that this morning. It's described in the third canto that. Anyways, I could probably pull it up. When I read that, I was also like kind of like surprised, because I didn't know what was there, but I knew there was like darkness, but there can't be anything unless like Krishna is there. And so let me see if I can find it real quick. Right. So before Garbhodakashayi Vishnu is there, Kshirodakashayi Vishnu is there. So like the Paramatma was already within the material universe, and actually what gives Brahma the facility to interact with the material nature has to be there. So like without, if Paramatma is not within the material nature, then it can't exist and it can't actually act. It can't. Anyways, let me see if I can look it up real quick. Um, um,
You could show it later if you want to. If you can't
yeah,
find it.
I can try to find it. But yeah, I actually read that this
Okay.
morning and I was kind of surprised
Yeah.
because of that.
Is that third canto you said?
Yeah, third canto,
Okay.
chapter 8 or 9, manifestation of Brahma from Garbhodakashayi Vishnu.
That's and his prayers come after that, right?
Yeah.
Those beautiful, they're really beautiful prayers. You can kind of understand his like,
Mm.
like you're talking about how Brahma is like a pure, pure devotee, and although
Right,
that
right.
tendency to create is there, he's giving that credit to Krishna, and he's praying, please don't let these, me becoming the creator, don't let me like think myself as supreme. I know that you're the supreme person, God. Please always let me remember that. And so I was thinking about that, like in our endeavors to do in our services and things like that, we can actually recite those verses of Brahma's prayers. They're very good because they kind of you see the humility of the head of the parampara, and we can
Yeah.
try to maintain that. And when we're practicing and when we're trying to endeavor for new things, new services, and we're trying to expand our services, and we can also pray like that, like in the mood of Brahma, that I'm trying to expand this, and please Krishna help me in your service like this. And I was also going to say one more thing is that I was listening to this not lecture, it's a conversation by Srila Prabhupada, and I think it's the perfect question, perfect answers sessions that are going on. And so Prabhupada is mentioning, they asking him this question that, will your movement go on after you leave? He said, as long as they're pure, as long as they present everything purely. That's the reason it hasn't gone on before I came. And that is the only qualification of it actually going on, that they present the message purely. They present Krishna as he is. And so it's just like some of the points you're making here, Prabhupada is. And if you just listen to it, I'm doing that now because I have, I'm contaminated like that, presenting as it is. So listening to that, like Srila Prabhupada is always heavy, just like every single conversation that I'm listening to is just like very straightforward. Yeah, Krishna is the Supreme Personality. We worship him. You must worship him. You must chant Hare Krishna. So devotees can listen to these things and see how Prabhupada really presented things in the West and even in even in India. He was just like, I'm not presenting Hindu Dharma. I'm not presenting your nonsense that you're saying. I'm not presenting. We're not the same here. I'm presenting Krishna consciousness. This is not a sectarian religion. He tells them that to them in Hindi, and they're a little bit surprised. They're like, but isn't this what we're meant to do? Aren't we meant to promote Dharma? It's like, I don't care if a Muslim becomes Hindu. What the heck is the use? What is the use of a Muslim becoming a Hindu? It's the same thing. He said, let him become Krishna conscious. We have so many Muslims that are Krishna conscious, and the Indian guy is a little bit taken back. He's like, oh, so you're saying you have so many from Hindustan or from somewhere else? It's like, from so many other countries we have. So Prabhupada is just like very heavy on that fact. And it's like, I'm realizing how important it is to understand that. It's like, that even though people don't know so much, just give him the straight thing. It's just like, and then Prabhupada says that by doing that, that's how the movement will continue on.
Yeah, I just the other day I picked up the Science of Self-Realization and just kind of like started reading it. And I've probably read that book like 3 or 4 times, and like it's been a long time since I read it. And I just picked it up. I was like, wow, this is like really, really amazing. Because it's like really obviously you really want to study Prabhupada's books and you want to like present the philosophy as he's giving it in his books. But he presents exactly how to do that in some of these conversations and letters and these small books that he specifically wrote just for like street preaching, basically, like giving people the message as it is, like in a very compact like form. Like you got like 5 minutes, okay, give me the whole nectar of Krishna consciousness, and like Prabhupada can do that. Specifically in there, there's I forget exactly what the title of that section is called, but Prabhupada addresses his god brothers in Bombay for the occasion of their spiritual masters Vyasa Puja. Yeah, with all humility in my command. And that one was just like so amazing. Prabhupada's like citing the Vedas and Bhagavatam and everything like this. So yeah, that reminded me of that. We should go back and read Prabhupada's small books and his conversations and everything. It'll teach us how to present this philosophy properly. Also, what you were talking about is Lord Brahma's prayers in the third canto. We also have the Brahma Samhita, which is like, the same mood. He's kind of like, he's literally having darshan of the spiritual world, and he's kind of talking about the supreme position of Krishna and everything like that. So that's also there. One interesting thing is, being, you know, Madhva is also like one of the acharyas in our line. Uh, you know, Madhvas, they don't accept some parts of like even the Bhagavatam, because like, in this Brahma Vimohana Leela in Krishna book, where Brahma gets like bewildered and like it seems like Brahma's like envious of Krishna for a little bit. They don't even like Madhva. He wrote a commentary on Bhagavatam, and mostly in the 10th canto, and he like almost like ignored that as if it wasn't even like existing. And like other things, like this whole story of like Lord Brahma being going lustily after his own daughter and things like this. So these are hard to understand, but we can understand that these are pastimes by a pure devotee. And also, there's so many other universes where the Brahma is not a pure devotee as well. Anyways, just some things that I was like reminded about. Anybody else over here? Oh yeah, we can discuss later. But is there anything over here? Yeah.
There may not be an answer for it, because you just mentioned that like the pastimes of Lord Brahma are so inconceivable, but you mentioned that Lord Brahma, like to have that post, one has to be, like very materialistic person to be like desirous or to attain such a post. And so I'm trying to understand how Lord Brahma can be such a pure devotee, but also have, that kind of mood of.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily materialistic in the sense that like we might think of it. There's also being grossly materialistic and being like super like pious as well. So the understanding is that in order to have such a high position, you have to be somewhat of a devotee of Krishna, because you have to understand the Vedas, you have to perform so many different sacrifices and things like this. And Prabhupada always talks about how all the demigods are devotees of Krishna, but the point is that to have a post as one of these devatas, which are like superintendents of the material energy, it's got to be mixed devotional service. And like I'm still kind of having a hard time understanding this statement, but let me see if I can find it real quick. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta says that he's performing mixed devotional service because he's meditating upon Krishna, but he's doing so many mundane activities. He's creating so many different things. He's like, creating all these different facilities for sense gratification. Anyways, I don't know if I can find it, but yeah, the understanding is there that the demigods are all devotees, but because they're still attached to doing material activities, it's not pure devotional service. But because Lord Brahma is specifically creating this material universe to fulfill the desire of Krishna to create a sphere for conditioned souls to come back to him, that's what makes him pure. He's it's kind of like this principle of yukta vairagya. He's using the material energy to create a place where ultimately conditioned souls can come here, and it's like a hospital. He like creates like a hospital for conditioned souls. So anyways, is that good?
Yeah,
Okay.
I had one last small question.
Yeah, yeah.
Just in understanding what manifest and non-manifest is, because I even came across this in the Bhagavad Gita where it was speaking about like Krishna's universal form is manifest and non-manifested. So what does that mean?
Yeah, so when we're talking about like spiritual things like Krishna's form and spiritual knowledge and things like this, we have to understand that it's eternal. And just like how the soul is eternal and like, you know, obviously we don't know where we were before we were in this body and we don't really know where we're going to go after this body. So for our family members, it seems like, you know, we're only existing for like this amount of time, even though the soul is something which is eternal. Similarly, for anything spiritual, it's always existing. You just don't know where it is all the time, basically. And that's kind of what happens in the material world. And that's why like you know, all of Krishna's energies are eternal. Even the material energy, the potential for the material universes, that's also eternal. He just sometimes manifests it and sometimes he doesn't. You know, it's like sometimes he wraps everything back up, and at that time all the conditioned souls are like sleeping, basically. So yeah, it's just a matter of like being able to see it or not being able to see it.
What's the Sanskrit for like manifesting?
Prakash. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavritaha. It's like to illuminate apritagnana. Yeah. Anyways, specifically that kind of came into my mind. Naham prakasha sarvasya. That I do not become manifest to the fools, mudhas. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada